don't know me, my name is Toy Beasley, and I'm the president of the McLean County Reentry Council. I'm also a person that have been just as impacted by the criminal justice system. So I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited about being here today. We're going to do introductions. Some people may know some people may not know each other. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go around, tell us who we are, who we work for, and what we do in the community, and what's your favorite Christmas song. Okay. I'll go ahead and start since I kind of introduced myself already and who I was. But my favorite Christmas song is Jingle Bells. So that's my favorite Christmas song. So I'll go ahead and start with next person to me, Ursula.
Hi, I'm Ursula Lorcher from Goodwill. I am a career coach here, and we just help the general public with anything related to employment. And my favorite Christmas song, which would be Merry Christmas Baby by Elvis.
Oh, awesome. Just by the way, Ursula, we got your information updated in the resource guide. We just got to send it over, and so that should be updated soon.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem. Mr. Johnson.
Hey everybody, I'm Tommy Johnson. I work at Heartland Community College. I'm a success navigator for the Workforce Equity Initiative, and I'm also a BSU Black Student Union advisor there at the college. I help students get short-term certificates in high demand, high-paying careers. I'm out in the community because I'm always looking for students. See if they can get supported. Christmas song. I would say Christmas Time in Hollis by Run DMC.
Okay, thank you. Lexi?
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Lexi. I work at Heartland Community College. I'm in the admissions office and I do student recruitment and work with transfer students, and I do a lot of community outreach with non-traditional folks. I'd say my favorite Christmas song is Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Jackson 5.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Marla?
Hi, everyone. I'm Marla Elmore. I work at the Department of Corrections with Parole and Reentry. I work at the Champaign office, but you guys are my neighbors, so I come in and, creep around a little bit. Favorite Christmas, I'd probably say anywhere from Rock Around the Christmas Tree to Silent Night. So.
Okay. Thanks, Marla. Welcome back. Zach?
Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I also work at Heartland Community College, work with Lexi with student recruitment and community outreach. And it's not necessarily Christmas, but Christmas adjacent. The song Sweet Gingerbread Man by Sammy Davis Jr. is a jam.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Let's go, Sarah.
All right, hopefully I'm unmuted now. I'm Sarah Vittstum. I am a mental health clinician working at the Normal Police Department. I was brought on for officer wellness and taking care of officers, but also then being a resource for officers to, or I kind of collect resources for officers to be able to use with those they're working with in the community from a mental health standpoint. And one of my favorite Christmas songs, I would say, is Jingle Bell Rock. And it's come to my attention recently through social media that you are either of the Home Alone Jingle Bell Rock camp or the Mean Girls Jingle Bell Rock camp, and I am firmly in Home Alone.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome back. Melissa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Odell, Executive Director of Defy Ventures Illinois. We provide pathways to financial independence for people who are currently informally incarcerated. My favorite Christmas song is Oh Holy Night.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. At the end, you can just maybe want to share a little bit about what Defy Ventures is, and also just keep in mind we want to have you back on our broadcast here one day next year. So
great.
We connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Michelle. off. Michelle? Okay, we'll come back to Michelle. Let's go. Is that Shreyas? Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's Shreyas.
Sorry. Oh, I did say it right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself. I know you popped on late, who you are, who you work for, what you do in the community, and what's your favorite Christmas song as an introduction.
Sure. My name is Shreya Shastri. I am a staff attorney for Prairie State Legal Services. We provide free legal aid to people in the community. My favorite Christmas song is probably, I'm going to go Mary Did You Know?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate you coming. Is Michelle, are you on?
I
There you
am. I'm
go.
officially just using my phone today, so
Oh, okay.
I'm not really I'm not as used to using this Zoom as my former computer use, so it's just a work in progress.
We're just doing introductions, who you are, what you're
I'm
doing
Michelle
now.
Cope. I am on the board of the Reentry Council and newly retired from Bloomington Public Library.
Yay! Welcome, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, I'm going to introduce Erin Duncan. She's a staff attorney with the Prairie State Legal Services. She's going to come and talk to us about some awesome things that they're doing over there. And if you have, after we get done with this presentation, if you got any questions, you're more than welcome to ask her. So I know I gave some of your introduction, Erin. You can go ahead with the rest.
Sounds good. And then I'll get my screen back up again. But it's nice with introductions to be able to see each other. So I took it down for a minute there. I also didn't tell you, Toy, I just took on a new role at Prairie State. I'll be a supervising attorney now, which is great.
Okay.
So that means
Okay.
my workload will be reduced a little bit, and I'll be able to help some newer attorneys out with their cases.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're happy to welcome Shreyas. He's been with us a little bit of time and is doing awesome already. So I invited him to join me today. So let me just get my slides pulled up here. Give me one moment, okay? They might be back to being small again, unfortunately.
That's fine. I could see it.
Let me see if I can fix it. 1 second.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I can't see you all when I do that, but I'm going to do that.
It just went back. It just went back. There we go.
Is it big now?
Yep.
All right. I can't see you guys when it's on like this, but that's okay. Once we're done, I will take questions and I'll probably get out of the slides, but I want you to be able to see the information. So, all right. So I am going to be talking today about criminal records relief. Let's see. I'm sorry. It's really hard to present when I can't see you guys. So I'm going to work this out. Give me one more minute. Okay.
Kat, I forgot you. You want to introduce yourself before Aaron pops on?
Yeah, I can do that real quick.
Sorry about that.
I am Kat Hayes. I am the newly minted community health specialist for recovery supports for the McLean County Recovery Oriented System of Care. And my favorite Christmas song is kind of tied 50-50 between Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney and then Baby Please Come Home. I think it's by Darlene Love is her name. I always love hearing this on the radio.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that, Kat. Welcome back.
No worries.
All right.
This might be about as good as we're going to get with me still being able to see you. How's that? Can you see them now?
Not yet.
All right, tech, work with me. Give me 1 second. Well, remind me not to use Google Slides next time, Toy.
That's fine. It happens.
All right. I think this is as good as we're going to get. You guys can see that, right? It's just not
Yep.
huge.
Yep. That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're talking about criminal records relief today. So Prairie State, I'll give you a little bit more background on kind of what we do in general. We help folks with a lot of different civil legal problems. But one of our big areas that we've been trying to expand, partly because there's funding for it right now, which is great, and so that folks don't have to hire private attorneys for it, is doing criminal records relief, which is sealing and expunging criminal background to remove barriers to housing and employment. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are as an agency, who we can help, some of the basics of this particular area of law, how to apply, and I'm happy to take questions as well. This is just Prairie State's mission: ensure equal access to justice and fair treatment under the law by providing legal advice and representation, advocacy, education, and outreach that serve to protect basic human needs and enforce or uphold rights. So we are a nonprofit and a law firm. We offer free legal services to low-income individuals and folks over 60. We do have, some application requirements to ensure that people are qualified for our services, but I always like to tell people, don't worry too much about that when you hear these presentations about who may qualify or not qualify. We have different grants and things that we operate under. For some of our grants, sometimes if we have the right domestic violence funding, for instance, then the income limits go away for certain folks. It sort of depends on, as a nonprofit that gets money in different ways, what's going on at any given time. And we just want you to go ahead and apply, and we'll sort out if you are eligible for our services or not, because we don't want you to have to pay for legal services that you can get for free. Legal help is available in any language. We have a language line where we work with a phone service, and we do have some Spanish-speaking attorneys on staff. We do encourage everyone to apply to see if you're qualified. So sometimes people who know us in our local office here in Bloomington are surprised to see what a large law firm we actually are. We have 11 offices. We cover 36 counties across northern and central Illinois. So we really are the only legal services, legal aid law firm in this part of northern and central Illinois. South of us is Land of Lincoln Legal Aid. It's a different legal aid firm. And then Chicagoland has a number of different law firms. Legal Aid Chicago is the big one, but there are some other smaller legal aid offices in Chicago as well. But if you've got a legal issue in one of our 36 counties, you'll be calling our office. And we work with those other agencies, make referrals and whatnot if we can't assist. This is a little picture of our office. We're right in downtown Bloomington by the courthouse. Our local office serves McLean, Livingston, and Woodford counties. If you've got, for instance, if we're helping with records relief and you have cases you're trying to get sealed in McLean and then also Peoria County or something like that, we may work with our colleagues in Peoria, and you could get services from multiple offices, but all within Prairie State. Again, we are one law firm. We share information across our systems so that we can see notes that our telephone counselors took or our other offices took notes about a case, and we can easily share information across counties. So Prairie State helps with three primary kind of, I would say, umbrella overarching areas of law. We work on issues related to safety, housing, and financial stability. So this is just a little bit of more of an overview before we get into criminal records relief. So safety covers a lot of things, but primarily our work in this area is orders of protection. If there's a contested case, somebody's gone and gotten an emergency order or done a petition for protection with the court system, we will intake, take appointments with folks who need assistance in their hearing. We can't represent in every case, but we try to give as good of advice as we can, and we do represent in a lot of hearings to uphold those orders of protection. We help with issues of elder abuse, financial abuse, other types of safety-related concerns. Some of our safety work is also related to housing. We do conditions issues. If you're living in an unsafe apartment, we can advise, sometimes litigate, come up with legal solutions to that situation. We help people who are facing eviction. We help folks who have been subject to discrimination in their housing. So a lot of different types of housing work as well. Happy to answer questions at the end about those types of cases. And financial stability really covers a lot of different things. We do help people with public benefits issues, Social Security, unemployment, Medicaid and Medicare issues. But we would say that this sealing and expungement work also sort of falls generally under that financial stability prong. I do have to always give a little disclaimer. You know that we're lawyers, so we got to do these things. Today's presentation is legal information only, not legal advice specific to your situation. So if you have a specific case that you need information about a particular situation, we do encourage you to call us. Then we can really get you some case-specific advice about that situation. Okay, so going back to this sort of idea of stability and what we can do to help clients who are coming out of incarceration or have been living in the community and facing barriers to things like housing and employment. We can help with sealing and expunging those criminal records if you're eligible, and I'm going to cover what that looks like. We do also, kind of tangential to that, help with driver's license advice, reinstatement, sometimes helping people at hearings. I will say those cases are difficult. There are a lot of financial barriers to getting your license reinstated, but we try to give people a really good roadmap about how you can work towards getting reinstatement if you've had your license suspended or revoked. We help with cannabis expungement, similar to our other sealing and expungement work. It is a little bit different. There's supposed to be more automatic expungement of cannabis charges. After cannabis was made legal in Illinois, the legislature put some new laws in place that are supposed to make minor offenses fall away automatically. That doesn't always happen in practice, so we can advise folks about filing motions to try to get that to happen more quickly. I do have to be clear that we don't do criminal defense. So this type of work is sort of post-judgment relief that I've been talking about. It's technically within the civil legal system. We don't participate in the criminal legal system in terms of representing people in their active criminal cases. So that would be usually the public defender or private criminal attorneys. And we can't assist as well in traffic cases. Okay, so this is kind of background on what the general law looks like. So in Illinois, a person must usually request that an arrest or conviction be removed from their record. So even arrests don't automatically fall away. They remain part of your Illinois State Police report if you've had an arrest. Some cannabis records, some juvenile records are supposed to go under that automatic process, but for the most part, on your state police report, it's going to show that you've been arrested. The same is true for dismissals, right? So if you just go into McLean County court records, you type in your name and you had a case that was charged, and then maybe the state decided not to proceed for whatever reason, or you went to a trial and you were found not guilty, it's still going to show up that there's a public record of that case, that it was ever filed in the first place. And so there are laws in place like the Employee Background Fairness Act that say that employers cannot discriminate against you for employment on the basis of an arrest only. But you can see how, for practical purposes, that can be difficult to enforce sometimes. We are an at-will employment state in terms of, for instance, firing from employment. There's just not a lot of guardrails in place to try to say, well, they didn't hire you or they fired you for this particular reason that was not legitimate and would constitute discrimination. And so having your arrests sealed because they never resulted in conviction can help people if they're running that type of sort of informal background check where they're just going and looking up a case online that never resulted in a conviction. So arrests or non-convictions, those types of cases are expungible, actually, which means that they get erased completely from the record. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the difference between expungement and sealing. I will also say, because I mentioned the Employee Background Fairness Act, there is a complaint process for that. It's still a fairly new law. If you think that you've been discriminated against under that act, for instance, that they denied you because of an arrest record, or because they looked up your criminal background before they ever found that you were minimally qualified for the job, then you could file a complaint against that employer. And the state, we believe, is looking at those complaints. We don't know how quickly those are being processed, but I think the state's not going to know that there's employers out there not following this law unless people complain about it and say, here's a pattern of practice happening with this employer. So in all these cases, whether it's dismissals, acquittals, findings of guilt, which would result in conviction, or an arrest, you have to make the active request for the record to be expunged or sealed. This is just a little graphic about how criminal records are created. I'm going to skip over that one just to be aware of time here. So who can access criminal records? Anybody can request a criminal record file from the county clerk, actually going into the courthouse and requesting a file to review it, or going on that online record, like I mentioned. Some of the counties use a system called Judici. Livingston and Woodford counties use that. McLean County has their own online system. But these are just online records of court cases. And so you can plug somebody's name in and typically be able to pull up a fair amount of information about a case. But usually this is happening from credit reporting agencies, criminal background checks, landlords, employers, banks. These are common examples of entities that may be looking at your criminal record. The Fair Credit Reporting Act allows private background checks to show non-convictions even for 7 years, and convictions forever unless they've been sealed or expunged. So why do we do this? More job opportunities, more rental and housing opportunities. We have a very tough rental market right now. And so, we do know that landlords do deny folks because of criminal background. Trying to just get a clean slate. It's an opportunity under the law to say you've served your sentence, you've had a judge look at your request, and it makes sense for you to have this off of your background so that you can move forward with your life. So the difference between expungement and sealing. Expungement means the records are impounded or destroyed, so it's as if they didn't exist. So non-convictions are eligible for expungement, dismissals and acquittals. Some supervisions, which is a type of sentence, but that ultimately results in dismissal of the case. So it ultimately is not a conviction if you've successfully completed the supervision. Some types of qualified probation and some types of cannabis charges. Typically, though, when we're talking about convictions, you're really just talking about sealing. But the differences are not huge. Sealing does totally remove the record still from the public view. Law enforcement can still see sealed felonies. Employers that are required by law to run a fingerprint background check, so like city or county government, schools, some of those entities are going to be able to see sealed records. But most, for the most part, it's going to take it away from the public view so that employers are not going to see that on a background check or be able to go into that public system and just type it in and be able to see the information. And we'll cover which types of convictions are eligible in a moment. So both are helpful. If a case can be expunged, that's the best option. But we do like to emphasize that sealing itself is still really good relief and can help people versus expungement. So the process, when somebody calls in and they say, I'm interested in this relief, we get a little bit of information from them about where their cases are. We can only, so this is all state law. And so these are state specific cases. So we can't assist people with out of state cases. There are other states that have similar processes, but not all of them. And so if you've got convictions in other states, got to go to that state, call their county legal aid, wherever the case exists, and see if maybe they can assist you. Sometimes they might be able to, even if you aren't a resident there. But we take a look at what we can in terms of Illinois cases and try to determine, is this person eligible? There are some waiting periods that apply, and I'm going to cover that in more detail. So you might be ultimately eligible for the type of offense to get this relief, but maybe not yet in terms of the timeline. So we'll give advice about that. If it looks like both things apply, it's an eligible offense and the timeline, you're eligible to make the request in court, then a lot of times we're able to assist people with filing that request. Even if we can't for some reason represent them in the case, we can sometimes help prepare the documents, give you as much service as we can to try to help you move forward with your request. Once the request is filed in court, that starts a little waiting period, 60-day notice period, where the arresting agency and the state's attorney get notice of your request, and they do have an opportunity to object. And so we have to wait for that to happen and see if that happens. It's a little hit or miss, what types of cases or why the state's attorney might object. I will say that lately we've been getting a few more objections. Kind of seems like, somebody new came into the state's attorney's office and has started objecting. But we've also been successful in going to hearings and still getting cases sealed over those objections. So an objection is not the end of the road necessarily. If there's no objection, you may not need to go to court at all. We'll get the paperwork filed, and it will go to a judge for review after that 60-day notice period. The judge is typically going to just look at that and sign it. I don't think we've really seen situations where the judge is not signing those requests if there's no objection. And it really depends, but I mean, I've had some pretty significant cases. I had one case where we got 23 different cases sealed where there was no objection, and the judge signed off on all of them. And you can imagine for that person what a big impact that had for them moving forward for their housing and employment. So that's sort of the general process. If there is an objection, there's going to be a hearing where you present your case. It's not a lot of detailed information about the underlying convictions. It's not a chance to really relitigate what happened in terms of, that case. If there was a conviction, the opportunity for that was prior to the conviction. But it's a chance to sort of say what's changed, how this has been a barrier for you, why it would be good for your life to be able to have expungement or sealing occur, and be able to put on some information about that to a judge who then has discretion about whether or not to grant your request. If the request is granted, then you get a copy of the court order. ISP is the Illinois State Police, so it gets sent over to the state police. It does take them a little bit of time, 2 or 3 months, to get everything processed. But once it's processed, it should fall off of their records, which means then when the background check is going to the state police, it's no longer going to show up on those reports after sealing. I feel like I've given you a lot of information already, and there's plenty more to cover, but I'm going to pause for a second and see if anybody has questions on what I've already covered. And if not, I'll keep moving. Okay, so determining your eligibility. So we talked a little bit about eligible records for expungement already. For sealing, it's most misdemeanor and felony convictions, but not all. There's a sort of a small subset of cases that the legislature decided for different reasons, we're not going to allow this relief for these particular types of convictions. So here's the ineligible records. And again, I'm sorry, my screen's a little bit small today, but convictions or supervision for minor traffic offenses. DUI is a big one. We a lot of times see folks who will want to get DUIs sealed, and it just is not one of the categories of cases that for which the legislature allows this relief. Most reckless driving, most domestic battery, violations of orders of protection, sex offenses, and animal offenses are really the main categories of cases that are not eligible. But you'll see that there's a lot of things that are not on here, right, that are eligible for sealing. So battery that is not domestic battery, assault, arson, whether they're violent offenses or non-violent offenses. If they're not on this short list of ineligible types of offenses, then you can still request relief. And it ultimately comes down to the judge's discretion on whether or not to grant that relief. One second. All right, so you do usually have this waiting period where you have to wait. Typically, it's 3 years after the end of your last sentence. I know there's a lot on this screen, but I will say the primary rule when you're looking at convictions is 3 years after the end of your last sentence in any case. So take those 23 cases. We got them all sealed at once, but we couldn't apply to seal all of them until 3 years after the last sentence in the most recent case. Once that time period is up, then you can include whatever you want in the petition, including older cases. There is no waiting period for a request to expunge for non-convictions, so dismissals, not guilties. There are some special rules around supervisions and qualified probations, but for convictions, it's usually that 3 years, unless an exception applies. And there is a really nice exception, which is that if you obtain some sort of vocational training during the term of your most recent sentence, which could be anything as much as a diploma or GED or degree, and sometimes a certificate. I know we have somebody from Goodwill here. They do, vocational technical training programs. Dreams Are Possible is a vocational program for women in Bloomington that qualifies. We have had people get food handlers permits and be successful. That is a fairly short online course that will qualify someone for this exception. Typically, you want it to relate to the type of work that you're going to be doing, so that it's clear to the judge you're doing some sort of self-improvement and there's a reason for the waiting period exception to apply. But if you're down to 1 week left on probation and you learn about this waiting period exception, we always say, go get a food handler's permit or go do something quickly, get some kind of certificate, because you might be able to cut 3 years off of this waiting period if you're able to show that you obtained something like this during the term of your most recent sentence. Now, I don't know why they don't allow it after the sentence ends. It does feel unjust that you would complete a sentence, learn about this waiting period exception 6 weeks later, and then not be eligible for it because you didn't earn something during the sentence itself, and then you're within that 3-year period again, right? But that's what the legislature said, and that's what the law says, unfortunately. So that's why we do this sort of thing. We go out here in the community, we try to tell people about it now, especially with a program like the Reentry Council, where folks are coming out of incarceration, are often still potentially on some sort of probation or parole. We want people to know about this so that you can, earn some type of certificate, do some sort of programming to shave that 3 years off and get around that 3-year waiting period. And then as soon as that sentence ends, you're eligible to go in and file your petition to seal. Does anybody have questions about the waiting period or the exception?
That's good to know. I didn't know that they can get just a simple certificate, like a food handling certificate. I knew about the GED, high school diploma, and a degree in a vocational, but I didn't know a simple degree like food handling would fit the criteria for that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, and I can't say that it will in every case, but we have definitely seen it work. And I will say,
Right.
when we've had hearings and whatnot, that's not usually the issue. I mean, the judges and the state's attorney aren't really pushing on what
Right.
type of certificate they got when we filed our petition and just attached it and said, they fall within this exception. So yeah, we definitely encourage
Awesome.
people to look at the options. It doesn't have to be a lengthy program. But if you did, while incarcerated, do some sort of a program, earn a diploma or something, then certainly that would qualify as well. We've had people use forklift certificates. I'm trying to think of some other examples, but there's a lot of different types of technical certifications and things that work too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Erin?
Toy, this is Ursula. Our North Star Digital training program is a certificate. It is approved for this. And so they can come into my office, learn digital training, learn Word, Excel. I can get them a certificate and it'll be for this waiting period.
So, Erin, this is Michelle. Tell me what you mean.
You're on mute, Michelle.
I heard you had a question, Michelle, and then you went on mute.
So, sorry, what does it mean, the termination of their last sentence?
It really means when you no longer have any obligations left to the
Okay.
court.
So it can be parole, it can be supervision.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If it's still an active term of either of those things going on, probation, parole, supervision,
Okay.
if we only had fines and fees, it's still a sentence, but you
Right.
probably have an opportunity to go get a certificate because you
Sure.
fines and fees, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, that can put somebody back into the waiting period. Maybe they were close to being out of it and they had a relatively simple misdemeanor case and didn't have a long sentence. They could still be subject to that 3-year waiting period if, it was a short sentence, earn the certificate during the term of the last sentence.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Yeah.
Kat had her hand up. Kathy?
ahead.
Yeah, so I'm thinking through just some of that. Does that have to be vocational specific certificates? Or is it something you're showing like you're making an effort towards? Maybe this is a goal I have that I'm not enrolled in a program yet. But I'm just thinking through some of the things we offer for, I know in the community that are offered. Like if somebody's interested in the CRSS program at Heartland, if they're not in it, could they be doing something of good faith, like doing some of our mental health education awareness certifications?
If it's something that has a certificate like that, I would say it might qualify.
Okay.
I think that there's a good argument for that. You do need some sort of proof, some way to, provide some kind of certification. We've had some programs where somebody does like training as part of a job, like it's on the job training that is offered. And then there's not really a good, their certificate. Like we tried to use, I think, just an email from a supervisor or something before. And I can't tell you how much success we've had with that. I think that, it's sort of case by case. And when we do the intake
Right.
with somebody, we'll sort out whether we think that they might be able to file it. I think the worst that happens is that the judge, says this isn't sufficient. And then you're going to still have the opportunity to reapply later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we would just have to look at what the person comes in with. And then if they are still serving the term of a sentence and if we don't think it's sufficient, we would encourage them to go try something else.
Okay. I just know we offer things like getting certified in a suicide prevention program. I know the county and different places offer mental health first aid. I wasn't sure if something like that would count.
I'm not sure. I can ask we've got kind of a group chat across our service areas, with these sorts of issues. So I could see if people have had success with that type of thing before.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just be curious to know because there are a lot of different things out there that are free resources for some of these certifications that you go through, and maybe it's just like self-paced course, but just having like that little tidbit of knowledge to tuck away in your back pocket would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like if you can do it with food handlers, you should be able to for mental health first aid. But I'll see what people think and try to circle
Okay.
back with the answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to keep moving here. And Toy, can you remind me how much time I've got?
It's 1:43.
Do we end at the hour or later?
I mean, if you go over a couple of minutes, I'm pretty sure
Okay,
they wouldn't mind.
here we go. So cannabis, just a reminder, even though it's legal in Illinois, there are still limits. You can still get cannabis charges. IllinoisLegalAid.org has a lot of really good resource information about cannabis legalization and expungement. Most cannabis cases can be expunged or sealed. Minor cases are eligible for this automatic process. Like I said, that is going slower than I think folks would like. So if you still have a minor charge showing up that is somehow causing a barrier for you, you can file what's called a motion to expunge and vacate that charge, which is a similar process to filing a petition to seal. It's just under a little bit of a different legal analysis. There is a whole program called New Leaf Illinois that has attorneys, you know, a lot of capacity right now for, in particular, helping to expunge cannabis convictions from backgrounds. So that's also another resource to go through. Prairie State works with New Leaf, but, you know, Prairie State can also do the work necessary for sealing or expunging cannabis convictions along with other crimes as well. Okay, so a little bit more about process. You've got to file a request in court in each county where there's eligible cases. So again, you know, if you've got multi-county stuff, then you might be working with us and we might be making a referral either to another agency or another one of Prairie State's offices. There are some court fees involved in terms of paying for the filing, but a lot of times people will qualify for a fee waiver. If we are working with that person directly and we think that they qualify, we can file the necessary paperwork. We can also just advise you about whether we think you might be eligible, and you can fill out the fee waiver paperwork with the court. There are standard court forms for these types of requests. If you just type in Illinois Supreme Court forms sealing expungement, you'll find them, you know, the request, and there's an instruction form. And so people can do this themselves. Certainly, I encourage you to get a free attorney if you can. But, you know, the forms are out there. The law library at the courthouse is on the 6th floor. Justice Corps runs that program. They do help people with setting up electronic filing accounts and filing pro se paperwork without an attorney. So that's another resource to keep in mind. If there is that hearing that gets scheduled because there's an objection, you can file a response. You can prepare exhibits. You can bring witnesses. Really, it's a chance to tell your story about what your work history and employment has been, your character development. You can get letters of support. In McLean County right now, they're not objecting to those letters of support. Otherwise, in court cases, a letter is hearsay, right? It's an out-of-court statement that somebody's making without being there to be able to be cross-examined as a witness. And so we typically can't use that sort of thing as evidence. But with these types of cases, at least for the moment, we haven't been getting objections to using those letters. So that can be really helpful if you've been working with an agency, volunteering with them. You know, you've got somebody who can testify to your character. You can bring those letters in to help support your case. This looks a little bit duplicative. I'm going to skip over that one. Okay, ultimately, if your request is granted, the judge puts their decision on the order, and then it goes to the state police, and that gets processed and, again, falls away from that public record. And then the county also, at the county level, they're taking it off of their public-facing website. I'm just going to mention a couple other options. So healthcare worker waiver is the primary one I like to mention. So if you're not eligible for expungement or sealing, there are these other options. Healthcare worker waiver in particular has to do with the fact that in Illinois, healthcare providers have a law that's effective on them that says that those agencies cannot hire somebody with certain convictions. So there's a list of what are called disqualifying convictions, and the law is not effective on the person, really. It's effective on the healthcare provider, and it says you, healthcare provider, cannot hire somebody who has one of these disqualifying convictions. The good news is if you've gotten the case sealed or expunged, the Department of Public Health treats that as a waiver and says, we're going to ignore the fact that you have a disqualifying conviction. You are eligible to work in healthcare because this case is sealed. But if you haven't been able to get it sealed, there may be some reasons to pursue a waiver independently, which is a process through the Department of Public Health rather than through the court system. One of the primary reasons is you might have a case that's not eligible for sealing, domestic battery, for instance. And so that is a disqualifying conviction, but there is a process for you to request a waiver and be able to work in healthcare despite that conviction and despite the fact that it's not eligible to be sealed. So it is important to get case-specific advice about what makes the most sense for your situation. Sometimes if one we think is going to get processed more quickly than another route, maybe you apply for both a waiver and a request to seal, maybe you do one or the other, but we can help people sort out what makes the most sense for their situation. And once those, if something is sealed, I think I mentioned that a fingerprint employer, like a healthcare provider, can see a sealed felony, right? They can still see it on your record, but they're not going to treat that as disqualifying anymore. It doesn't really matter that they can see it. Now, they can still deny employment. Being eligible, not having a disqualifying conviction anymore, makes you eligible to be hired. It doesn't mean they have to hire you, right? But they do have to still follow that Employee Background Fairness Act law. And part of that law says they've got to give a good reason. They have to link the conviction to the type of work you're doing and be able to show that they're not hiring you because of this conviction, that there's some sort of good reason or link where they are deciding to not hire you. So, again, sealing is not out for every purpose, going to hide every single record from every single employer. It is going to hide it from most. And for those fingerprint employers, it's still pretty good relief, but they do have some ability to sometimes still make denials of employment. Okay, so this is just a little bit of contact information. That's our Bloomington phone number. If you call that number, they are working on our intake system. Our next year there's going to be a big project to sort of revamp our intake system. You will get a phone tree. Click through the links as best you can, and you should get to one of our telephone counselors to intake your case. And then if it makes sense, they'll kick it over to our local office so you can talk to one of our Bloomington attorneys and move forward. There is also an option to apply online. We do take referrals from agencies. I believe Toy has our form. If I don't have our updated one, I'll get you one, Toy. But, if you all work, folks at Heartland who are here, I know have our referral form. And so if you're working with somebody and for some reason, if they're running into kind of a roadblock on getting signed up for our services, encourage them to talk to our agency partners. You can fill out a referral form. There's a checkbox that says, that you've talked to them. They've agreed that you can make the referral to us so that we can reach out and contact them. Otherwise, we're not allowed to just reach out to people and solicit our services. But if they've talked to you and they want us to contact them, that's a good way for them to get in touch with us. So please do use that referral form. And if you need it, go ahead and drop your email in the chat and I can make sure I get that over to people. There's our website. There's also IllinoisLegalAid.org. That's not affiliated with Prairie State. It's not the same agency, but we do use it frequently, refer people there. It's just a really good website that is authored by Illinois attorneys, has really up-to-date legal information. You can type in any number of things, right? You can type in sealing and you'll get a bunch of articles. You can type in eviction or paternity or, any type of legal issue you might have, and you'll probably get some good, useful resources. So it's a great place to start if you just need some more information. And that's what I've got for you today. Happy to answer any more questions about Prairie State Services generally, or some of this more specific relief that we've been talking about. And I'm happy to always be able to get in these spaces and share about it. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciate that. I've learned some information that I didn't know about, and I thought I was well equipped on some of this information. So thank you so much. But I'm gonna go ahead and hop in right quick. And Michelle got her hand up. I got two things here. So I don't know how much you know about the clean slate. So if the clean slate bill is passed, what does this mean?
I know about the effort generally. I can't tell you what the terms of it are specifically off the top of my head. So I don't know that I can answer that with that more detail. I'm sorry.
Okay. No problem. Second is, so we get a lot of calls, at least I get a lot of calls about, from guys that come home, and also guys that's already in a prison, about getting somebody to represent them to see their kids. So the mother, because of past issues, won't let them see their kid. And a lot of guys that come home from prison, they don't have money for an attorney. So what do you guys do in the office? I know you shared a little bit, but what do you guys do for men that are in that arena?
So unfortunately, we don't have capacity to do a lot of family law. The reality is those cases are really contested. They're starting out where one person is not letting the other person, see the kids. It's going to be contested in court. They take a lot of hours, and because we handle so many different areas of legal service, we just don't have the capacity for those types of really heavily contested cases. We do sometimes help in family law, including custody or divorce issues, if it's related to domestic violence. And so if the person is a victim of domestic violence and they are also seeking, custody or some kind of a family law proceeding, we might be able to get involved in those cases. But if the person was a respondent in an order of protection, we're not going to be able to get involved to help them, see their kids, unfortunately. I would say encourage people to, go to our other area resources like the Fatherhood Coalition, through Brightpoint, or some of our other community partners who can provide some supports. Illinois Legal Aid's got information about what does it look like to file what's called an F case, a custody case for unmarried parents. What does it look like to get a determination of paternity if you're not actually on the birth certificate? Does it make sense to do that? That's going to also put you on the hook for child support. That's probably okay if you also want to see your kids and get a determination of paternity. But there's, I think more information's better, at least to figure out what's your situation, what are your rights. And then unfortunately, people are looking at saving money, trying to hire a private attorney. I would say even if you get a consultation or a couple meetings with a private attorney, it can go a long way in terms of setting somebody up for success in a family law case.
I let Michelle go. Michelle, you had a question? Dan?
I didn't have my hand raised. I just was clapping for Erin's presentation.
Okay.
That was very informative, Erin. Thank you so much.
And also too, if you guys want to let some of your community partners know, this will be on our YouTube channel. So if they want to go back and listen to this, they can. Did anyone else have any questions? Okay, I have one more question since they don't. So a person was arrested for domestic battery, and I remember you mentioned that it's really hard to get off. So say if a person was arrested but was never convicted, they were just arrested for domestic battery. Can they get that removed?
They can, yep, because that's not a conviction. So it's convictions for domestic battery that are not eligible. And supervisions for domestic battery, I believe but there is a longer waiting period involved after a successful supervision. Because remember, a supervision ultimately then is a dismissal of the case, but there's special rules around the waiting period for that. But a conviction for domestic battery is not going to be stealable. if it's just an arrest, it is sealable and actually expungible. It's still up to the judge's discretion. At the end of the day, you know, if there's an objection, and we do, I think, see objections on those types of cases from the state's attorney. They say, you know, it's in the public interest or in the interest of law enforcement to be able to see those types of cases if there is some sort of violence. But, you know, there's a hearing then, and the judge is assessing, does it make more sense to go with what the state's attorney's objection is, or overrule their objection and go ahead and grant the relief anyway? And we do see, you know, petitions being requested over objections.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions for Erin? Okay. So at the end, we always open the door up for anybody have any announcements. Thank you, Erin. Once again, I really appreciate you, all your knowledge and what you do for the Reentry Council. Can't thank you enough. So
No problem. Thanks,
appreciate
Troy.
it.
Happy to be involved, and thanks again for
Yeah.
the invitation.
Thank you. Does anybody have any announcements they would like to share, upcoming events at the end of this year or upcoming next year? Okay. Well, I would like to share that. Oh, go ahead, Kat.
The McLean County ROSC is currently in the process of, we have our community survey we are doing live. So with that, it's already gone out. You guys may have already gotten like 1 million emails about it. At least Toy has. We are asking that you guys take the survey yourself, but if you can also share and promote it, we have it on our social media, and we're going to be also looking for organizations to sign up if you guys are interested in being a survey distribution location. I will go ahead and drop all of that info in the chat before we head out.
Thanks, Kat. And also, too, just to make a quick announcement about the McLean County Reentry Council. We're having our annual resource fair the first week in May of next year. So mark your calendars. Last year was our biggest event. We want to make this event bigger. We're going to have the Secretary of State out there. If a person needs a free ID and they got the appropriate documentation, they get a free ID. If they want to find out what's on the driver's license, they can give some general information to them. They can mail it back to them. So we're going to have the DMV out there on site this year. And you guys that was a vendor last year, we want to welcome you back, get the word out. We're going to be coming out with a flyer probably after the new year to start spreading the word. And also, our next meeting, we're going to share with you guys some of the accomplishments that we had the past year and our vision looking forward. And also, you guys are going to be getting a survey. So if you get a survey from us, please send it back. We want to get your ideas. We want to know what you think of us. We're always looking ways to improve. You know, like I said, we're a fairly new non-for-profit. Well, not non-for-profit yet, but a fairly new organization in the pursuit of being a non-for-profit that we want to hear your ideas so we can move forward. You know, Reentry has never been really talked about a lot in McLean County, and we want to continue to push those initiatives and get that word out there for everybody. So if no one has nothing else, I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Kat. And if you don't have any more announcements, we'll see you next month. Appreciate you guys so much. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you,
holidays.
Troy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Bye-bye.